Before we get to the questions, I would like the representatives of Transco to know that I am and the rest of the community feel that we were deceived by you. You represented yourselves that this project was going to be small in nature and in scope, not as big as it was going to be. You purchased a piece of property from us, 14 acres, 8 usable. That's a lot different than, I think, close to 40 acres that you own now. You made it seem like you're using your own existing lines to boost pressure downline for your customer. Nowhere did you mention that a new pipeline be built through our community or possibly buying a neighboring piece to build a compressor station on. I feel that you misrepresented this yourself and this project, and I just wanted you to know how I felt and the rest of the community felt during this process. So I will start with the questions, and then we'll go from there. Back early this year, you made mention in a meeting, and it wasn't a public meeting, it was a private meeting between, I think the solicitor was there, Rich was there, myself was there, that you didn't know why New Jersey Natural Gas wanted this compressor built because you felt you had enough pressure in the line. Is that true, or is it not true? I mean, I think, David, you mentioned that to me. What is the pressure in the existing line that you're going to tie into?
The allowable operating of the existing pipeline remains unchanged with this project. The purposes of this compressor station are solely to move gas onto New Jersey Natural's line that they're constructing. And so the overall line pressure is not increasing, but the capability to transport gas at that specific delivery point is increased by this project. And so it certainly wasn't our intention to misrepresent the occurrence that was transpiring with this project. And anything that we can do to provide clarity around the project at this point in time, we'd like to do.
Okay. The scope of this project got way bigger than what was initially discussed. Way bigger. You had a conceptual plan of the 8 acres to fit all that on the 8 acres, and now it's just spread out and it looks a lot bigger.
Yeah,
and room for expansion is another thing. So that's another concern.
And would you like me to comment?
Please speak into the microphone.
Sure. Yeah, if you can comment.
All right. Initially, when we first approached regarding the compressor station facilities, it was at the very front end of the project.
Please. Go ahead.
Anyway, at the very front end of the project, we had done very limited engineering efforts to really study the layout or the configuration of the facilities. As we really kicked off the project, our initial concern was purchasing at least a piece of property to work from. Once we did that, we began doing conceptual site layouts. The requirements of the substation and the stormwater management facilities consumed much of that piece of property and very much restricted the space available for any of the compressor station or meter station facilities. And at that point in time, we began to look for an additional piece of property adjacent to that could be used for the construction of the facilities. As we've talked, originally our intention was to leave the compressor station on the track located adjacent to the turnpike. As we approached PSE&G, the electric generation company that is supplying power for the compressor station, they indicated that it was paramount that the substation be located on that property, that we're tying into the northernmost high voltage power transmission line, and we had to locate the substation immediately adjacent to that line, that you could not cross under any of the existing utility lines safely, and PSEG was unaccepting of the potential idea of that. So we ended up locating a substation over there, and we're left with insufficient room to lay out even the initial compressor station facilities, especially allowing adequate space for construction. And so we sought out the additional purchase of property and have utilized that. And while we have made provisions with the initial layout for an additional unit in the future, there are no current plans to install an additional unit. A standard practice whenever we're looking to install facilities, we do keep an eye towards the expandability of that in the future. But at this point in time, is not a project even on the horizon that would expand those facilities.
Meter station. March 24th of 2015, we sent a letter to your representation, Mr. Stevens, regarding to why you wanted to subdivide the meter station out a half acre. It was sidestepped and never answered, and if we had got that information, I think we would have known that New Jersey Natural Gas was going to tie to that meter station. But it was that question was never answered.
Aaron, I'm not aware of that. Ever be a plan that's subdivided? I'm not aware of that proposed subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. My name is Mark Stevens. I'm from Watson Stevens, Rudder and Roy, out of Freehold. Our firm has represented Transco for many years, since 1950, when original lines were put in through New Jersey. I've represented Transco since late 1980s. I've dealt with several compressor stations. Mr. Mayor, you asked, well, you used the term subdivision. I think that was perhaps inadvertent. We had initially considered a subdivision for the parcel that we purchased in Chesterfield Township, but I think we indicated fairly early on to council for the township that no subdivision was going to be required. I don't recall, or I don't understand any implication concerning deceit in this matter. If you care to.
Well, the letter states that you would file for subdivision for the meter station. Our attorney's response to you was, what was the subdivision for and the meter station for? And we never got a response that we can find or know of. If we had known, and this is just me hypothetically thinking, if we had known that New Jersey Natural Gas was going to tie there, we would have pressed more. But at no time was that mentioned. Actually, this might have been early this might have been 2014. Sorry, I am mistaken. It's 2014, not 15.
Okay, I was going to say that the time frame is such that we had purchased we closed on the purchase of the property from Chesterfield Township in October 2014. We had obviously arrived at a contract prior to that, and I think at the same time that we closed on the purchase with Chesterfield Township, there was a general announcement by Transco to the effect, and this I recall there was specifically something in the newspaper to the effect that the customer of Transco is going to be New Jersey Natural Gas. So the public was aware of this as early as October of 2000.
October. I'm pretty sure this letter was in March.
Okay.
So, but,
Mr. Mayor,
and if you have no,
yeah, Mr. Mayor, I understand what you're saying. I'd have to pull out a copy of the letter, look at the context. I think, I probably would have responded in some way, whether it was verbally or otherwise, to your counsel. But I thought that it made it clear that no subdivision was in fact going to be required.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to cover some questions on blowdowns. How frequent do you do scheduled blowdowns?
This station, this proposed station, is looking at one unit. So when we talk about a blowdown, it's a blowdown of the gas that's in that unit. Roughly 5 to 10 times a year for maintenance purposes, that may take place. And that's just the gas that's in the unit. That's not the rest of the gas that's in the station piping and in the piping that goes from the station and ties into the main pipeline. That's typical of just doing some maintenance.
What kind of volume are we talking about on, just in the unit? How big is the unit?
The unit that's going in is a 30,500 horsepower unit, and it's roughly about 3,000 cubic feet of gas that's in that unit.
Okay. And you say they go through a muffler system?
Goes through a charcoal deodorizer, is what we call them in the industry, which strips out the smell of the natural gas, slows the venting down, and then it goes through a muffler system that is barely audible.
Okay, you don't have decibels on that like you showed on the chart, or it has to fall under that regulation?
It has to, everything we do in the station has to meet the noise level at the fence line.
Okay. What kind of toxins does it release? Is there any radon, benzene, formaldehyde, any other chemicals?
Natural gas is made up of roughly about 13 components. Radon occurs naturally in natural gas, but it's EPA has done studies on it. It's at a very low level, barely detectable. It was deemed safe. I think there's a 1973 study that the EPA put out.
Excuse me, that's fine.
Well, you can find you can find a bunch of studies that the EPA did, independent studies that aren't ours. Formaldehyde is normally only found when you burn natural gas. It's not a component of natural gas coming out of the ground or being transported. So very, very low levels, and when we could get you the hygienist report for anything you need on radon content and anything found on that. Other than that, it's mostly 95 to 96% methane, and then a few other components, propane, some other things, but not toxic chemicals.
Okay, and the samples are taken at peak, or is it done on an average?
Samples are taken at locations along the pipeline for, where meter stations are usually is a good spot to take them.
Okay.
When you mean peak, I don't peak.
When it's blowing out, the peak volume that's coming out, or is it taken when it's
You can take it
dispersed?
you can take it right out of the pipeline before it even hits the air to test it.
Okay.
And we do have those test results that.
All right. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
So make a note of that for that.
All right. Thank you. Mike?
Just to follow up a little bit on Jeremy's question, I had some other questions written out, but I think that these I'm going to ask are more important. Now, you talked about the radon and the other gases. If you have the monitoring equipment there for the release of other gases, why couldn't you have some kind of monitoring equipment for these other toxic gases just in case the levels do get up to the point where they could be dangerous? I mean, how much would it cost to do that monitoring at a pump station?
Well, being in the business that we've been in for over 100 years, we've tested for all of this stuff throughout the system, and we just don't have it in the system. So there's nothing that we add or process or do to increase the levels.
Right.
The radon and the stuff you're talking about is a naturally occurring, and so it's been sampled, many times from many different companies, not just ours. And there's many studies out there that there's no reason to have that equipment.
Right, but understandably, people are concerned about radon for obvious reasons, for cancer-causing reasons. And just for peace of mind of the public, I would think some of that stuff you would provide at that station just so that people would feel better about it. I mean, how much could it cost to do that? I don't want to prolong this, but just a thought that I'm having is, why wouldn't you have equipment that would monitor some of these other dangerous gases and particulates? And that way, if something should happen where you get a high level, and you know yourself, some gases, just like some soils, are higher in radon than others. From what I've read of fracked gases, and I guess some of these are fracked gases, you would have to admit that there's more radon in those than there are in drilled gases. So that would be my concern right there.
I guess just to provide a little bit of background information, for interstate pipeline systems, we have a gas tariff that's on file with FERC that establishes the gas quality for all gas that we transport on our pipe system. That tariff establishes the gas quality and sets maximum thresholds for any contaminants other than methane. And at every point which we receive gas into our pipeline system, that gas is continuously analyzed to ensure that it's compliant with our tariff. And so you get to a point where you're talking about downstream of our transmission system at a compressor station, there's no threat of environmental contaminants or gas contaminants because they never got into the system to begin with. And the compression operations that we utilize on the system don't have the potential to introduce any contaminants.
So the machines, some of the machines you use to introduce gas into this system, that they monitor these toxic gases, and is there a record on a computer or something of how much is in there? Is there some kind of a record?
I mean, you can speak to the measurement records as far as what we have on.
I mean, if they monitor them, I would think something like that could be hooked to a computer and
Yeah, I mean,
I think that type of sampling in general is done upstream of when you would receive gas into an interstate transmission system. The type of contaminants that you're talking of have the most potential to be present at the wellhead when this gas is being produced.
Right.
And so by the time you get it into an actual transmission pipeline, it's so far downstream of that origin point that it's been treated and processed to remove any concerns or contaminants in the gas.
I understand what you're saying. I still have that concern, and obviously you're not going to allay that fear, but it's just a question I had as to why you wouldn't monitor that a little more closely, especially with public concerns. So thank you. You talk about the expansion, and I guess this is something that I'm concerned about, and maybe this was part of what Jeremy was talking about, that maybe we were fooled a little bit, because you were talking about enhancing the service that you already supplied to towns down at the shore. And then I think I read something to your stockholders that you're talking about a business expansion. So to me, those are two different things. When you first applied for this permit, you said it was for enhancement of the supply that you were serving, and in emergencies it would help to alleviate any problems. But then I read other things where it talks to the stockholders like it's an expansion of the company and expansion of the system, and those seem like two different things to me. And again, that's where what we understood was that you were just enhancing what you already had there as far as the pipeline is concerned.
I believe those comments or the remarks that you're referring to probably pertain to New Jersey Natural's pipeline facility. New Jersey Natural, as far as the gas that supplies their southern service district, we're not supplying New Jersey Natural that gas at this point in time. They're dependent upon another pipeline system to obtain gas for that service territory. And so the explanation that we've been provided is that it's increasing the reliability of that service through having a secondary supply source off of our pipeline.
Right, so I can't ask questions about the pipeline, just about the compressor station.
No, I would just add, we're an open pipeline, and when customers come to us and want us to build facilities, it is a benefit to the company that will be a business venture for us that would add to our expansion and add to our bottom line. If nobody comes to us over the next 10 years and wants to build anything with us, then we're level. But as more customers sign up and want to move gas from certain regions that we have pipeline, and we do construct those facilities based on FERC's approval, then yes, the company benefits and we expand. So that's the business model. But we don't build on speculation and then go get customers. We're approached by customers, and then FERC approves the project, and then we have to build it.
Well, how come this isn't considered one project, the pipeline and the compressor station? I would think that something like that, I mean, it's all connected. Aren't you involved with the gas companies at all? You don't have any kind of connection with them?
No, other than just providing a defined pathway on our pipeline, our existing pipeline system. That's our involvement. Our involvement in the overall, I guess, plans are limited to that aspect. That we're only providing capacity or transport capacity up to a certain termination point. And New Jersey Natural, I understand, has plans to construct a pipeline, but it's also an intrastate pipeline with a completely different set of regulatory and requirements and I guess
that would not be applicable to our industry or our interstate gas pipeline. You know, we're regulated by FERC, and they're regulated by New Jersey BPU. So we have no involvement with their design, construction, path, or anything they want to do.
Okay, thank you. You talked about inspections, and I understand you have your own employees inspecting. How often do federal inspectors or state, if it is a federal or state inspectors that would come in, how often would they come, let's say, to a compressor station like this one during a year's time?
Well, I'll answer that in 2 phases. During construction, they come out as frequently if they want. State environmental, state agencies, soil conservation, they're on the project the entire time it's built. They can come as often as they want. FERC can inspect us at any time. On average, they come to our compressor facilities maybe about every 2 years, and all of our records are open to them.
Once it's built, you mean?
Once it's constructed, if it's constructed, once it's built, roughly about every 2 years. It's on their schedule. They rotate on what they want to do. But out of my 4 locations I have now, it's about an average of every 2 years. They come in, check any record they want. They do physical inspections out in the field. They take readings. They test our employees. They test valves. They do record research and physical research.
How often do you, as a company, inspect? How often do you inspect for leaks and breakdowns and so forth?
We have compliance throughout the year that we follow, a whole bunch of different things, but things such as a leak survey where we actually walk the pipeline physically with equipment is done once a year. Valve testing, where we have automated valves, which we'll have on both sides of this compressor station, is done twice a year. At the compressor station, there's a host of different annual, semi-annual, quarterly testing that's done on the fire systems, the gas detection systems, all the shutdowns, vibration, temperature. It varies.
Well, you can understand why
But it's
people
constant.
are concerned, because even, if you say you do it twice a year or every 3 months, that doesn't seem like a lot to me, and a lot can happen between today and 90 days from now or 78 days from now. And I know you don't have any way of answering that, but it just, I'm concerned about
I do in
the interval.
I do in one aspect that we have redundant systems built in. So even if one system fails, there's backup systems. There's electronic systems, computer systems, but then there's mechanical systems and pneumatic systems that back up a lot of the different shutdowns and a lot of the different safety features of these stations. And over time and over the compressor stations I've been managing the last 25 years, that system has been working, and redundancy is key in building these types of stations.
Okay. I heard a word used,
One more, please. We got 3 more.
all right, I'm sorry. The word segmentation, what does that refer to with gas? Is that something that I know it's something I read about, and I thought it had something to do with blowdown and gas separation. Maybe I could be wrong. No? Okay. All right, thank you.
Safety is obviously a chief concern for the people of Chesterfield. Can you tell us how many accidents have occurred at the transfer compressor stations in the last 20 or 25 years?
I work in Division 4 here for Transco, in the New Jersey area. I wouldn't know system-wide. And, we were Transco's and then merged with Williams in 95. So, in the division, there's been no major accidents outside the facilities themselves.
What do you consider major?
Something that would be beyond our facility and our property line. Something to that effect, I would consider, my opinion.
You mentioned in your presentation that you would train the first responders here in Chesterfield. What's a reasonable estimate of the response time from your people in the event of an emergency at the station?
Well, again, different levels of emergency. A lot of the automated equipment shuts down, puts everything in a safe mode. A bunch of different types of failures will do that. with the 10-man crew that's there, obviously they live in different areas. Somebody is always on call for the station, and that's typically within, I mean, some people can be 15 minutes, other people 35, 45 minutes is typical.
What do the 10 employees typically do on a normal day at the station?
Well, currently right now, this is the proposed compressor station. We have a 8-man crew that works in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, that maintains the existing pipeline that goes through the area that we're talking about and tying into. So that crew, that 8-person crew, is moving into this compressor station, and then we're adding 2 more specialty type technicians for the automation type stuff. So they're required to do all of the testing and compliance under our FERC guidelines for the rest of the pipeline. So that's valve maintenance, maintaining right-of-ways, leak detection, patrols, any type of maintenance. That crew handles that at the pipeline level. Once a compressor station is built, that crew plus the additional 2 will then handle the maintenance of that compressor station plus the pipeline.
If there is an incident, is there anything our first responders here in Chesterfield should not be doing?
Entering the facility and touching our equipment. Because, you know, it's a specialized nature with different valves and different things like that. You could have 0 on one end and touch something you don't know, open up a valve and then introduce 800 pounds of gas to a small incident and make it bigger. So our normal response is, and we'll go over this with the emergency responders, if we do build it prior to building it, is to basically, you know, worry about if evacuation is needed, depending on the size of any type of emergency. Wait at the gate, meet our responders, follow the command center setup. We follow the ICS system also, and are trained in that to go to the command post and then develop a plan from there on what has to be done.
But there's no, say, guaranteed response time that, I mean, the compressor station could be going up in flames and...
You have people on call, guaranteed response time with traffic, accidents, weather, hurricanes, snowstorms. You know, again, working in all of our other compressor stations, you know, proven system that's been working.
Thanks.
Gas control has remote operation. Second level's failures, if something failed at the compressor station and we couldn't separate it from the pipeline and that failed, the next level is there's valve settings on both sides. One's 1/10 of a mile away, one's about 3 miles away. There's automatic equipment there that also shuts down. So gas control has a lot of things they can do. And again, the redundancy in the station puts everything into a safe state.
For the size of this compressor station, what is the impact radius?
There's a couple different lines that are in there using the basic formula that's been out there published. For the 36-inch header that we got, I think it was 713. Do you have the notes? For the 32-inch or 36-inch pipe that we'll have coming into the station, 697 feet. And for the 42-inch discharge header we have, it's 813 feet. And that's based on a full separation of the pipe.
Thank you, Ron. When I was looking at your slide presentation, you had a couple of renderings for compressor stations that are those to scale?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, to me, the compressor station, compared to the homes right across the street, it looks like an airplane hangar. That's why I was kind of concerned that may be the case. But what's the footprint of that and the height and...
I believe the size of the building is 80 by 100, 80 feet by 100 feet. And the height of it, I don't have that information right now. If you guys would like it, we can provide that at a later time.
Yes, please. Just to follow up on something that Ron had added to, when it comes to training for police and fire, for our first responders, is that something that is just part and parcel of what you do? Are there periodic updates, or is it just like, here guys, this is?
I'll do it as often as necessary. I normally meet with the volunteer fire departments. We bring them into the facility. We do a tour of the facility. We show a little bit of training, and then it's basically us talking to them one-on-one. What do you need? What do you feel comfortable with? Do you want to do it annually? We did one drill at my Branchburg location. We have a pond there. The local fire department wanted to stage some trucks, not for dealing with an emergency at our facility, but pump from one truck to another and into a extension ladder. So we'll do whatever is necessary and whatever training they feel they need versus what we think we need.
And Russ, in other municipalities where you have this type of facility, have you found that there's a certain type of equipment that the municipality needs to have that is atypical?
No, standard. Again, with a natural gas emergency, our buildings are all non-combustible. There may be some stuff that can burn inside the office part. If there's a problem with the compressor, we're going to vent that gas, but if it did ignite and it was burning straight up, the response is to let it burn out. Close the valves. If valves failed that we couldn't close, we go and close valves further away and let it burn out. So you don't put out natural gas fires. You don't spray water on them so they can reignite when you don't see them. So there's nothing that's needed extra. There's not foam trucks. We don't get into any of that stuff.
And for the potential incident that happens after the normal 7 to 3:30 hours, where the 10 or so dedicated staff go home, and you talk about response time, and there's certain things that our first responders couldn't do. Where would your folks be responding from in order to get there in a timely manner?
From their homes.
And generally, are they required to live within a certain proximity to these facilities?
Usually within an hour. But again, these stations are designed to shut down safely. So in the small incidents we've ever had with a gas smell or something like that, we've got there, and again, it could be 10 minutes. There could be people living here 10 minutes. One employee is going to be living right by Bordentown, and so they come, it's an average. I'm not saying everybody's an hour. So it's not, like.
I was just going to comment. I think to Russ's point, these stations are designed for remote operation. Not unlike unmanned aircraft, these facilities are intended and designed to be operated remotely. The fact that we have staff out there is more of a matter of convenience and a necessity for public safety. The fail-safe programs and then the infrastructure in place allowing these facilities to operate is done so that you do not require manned personnel there at these stations. There's a number of autonomous and remotely controlled devices in use all over the world and all over the country where you don't have necessarily instantaneous response times. And you put safety systems into place to ensure that you are serving public interest and protecting public safety. Yeah, and our gas control, which does have the remote operation capability of the station, is staffed 24/7 with multiple levels of redundancy in place for communication systems. In the event that the local controls and local safeguards fail, which there are layers upon layers for it, then we do have an additional layer that operates and monitors gas line pressure at every significant valve and at the pipeline on a continual basis.
And Dave, just to stay on that note, one of the things that you represented in the presentation was an 800 number that's available for public or the clerk. Is that the same 800 number that the police and fire have to call, or is there somebody is there contact with one of your regulars that's on site in an emergency?
The 800 number goes right to our Houston Gas Control Center. Local numbers will be given out. That's fine. And we could also, what I've done at a couple other stations, we develop an emergency response plan where we've put that information together, sat down with the OEM chief and said, okay, this is the staff, this is the protocol, this is the notification list, these are maps, anything that needs to go into that book, we'll work with them, and those numbers are available.
Russ, I'm guessing this is going to be a question for you, just based on you guys have answered stuff. In my world, as an auditor, we look at materiality. And certain things are immaterial because we know if we're going to do an audit for you, everything's not going to be to the dollar. So using that analogy for your company, I'm thinking there's some amount of gas that's unaccounted for. There's some here and there might be a leak of some sort that might be immaterial. Do you know what that is? Is there an expectation?
There's an LNU for the entire company. We don't operate with leaks. We don't have any leaks on the pipeline. Being a high pressure pipeline, any leak in the below ground pipe that's welded, tested, is an immediate emergency. Equipment that may leak at a compressor station, as soon as it's detected, is fixed. A fitting, a little piece of pipe, something like that might have cracked or vibration or something, did something like that. That's very small, but no, we don't operate like utilities that rate leaks or prioritize them. They're fixed immediately. When we account, where a lot of our LNU come from is on known blowdowns. When we do construction projects and pipeline projects, you have to know the exact diameter of the pipe, the exact footage. Sometimes that stuff is estimated, which will then, have an error in the size of our company. That's where our LNU comes from. This facility will not be venting gas on a regular basis. That's a product we don't want to lose anyway. And again, we operate on a no leak basis.
Okay, and then this will just be my last question. When you talk about the blowdowns, and you had indicated in your presentation that and this is not my vocation, but you talked about methane being odorless, and if that's the case, and I'm guessing, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, 95% of the gas that's emitted is methane?
Roughly.
So if that's the case, why would we need a deodorizer if the overwhelming majority of the gas is supposed to be odorless?
In New Jersey, the gas is odorized. By state law, any gas entering New Jersey has to have mercaptan in it to make it smell.
Primarily for distribution systems.
For distribution system leaks, for people at their houses to smell it. So we strip it back out when we vent to not cause public nuisance. And then that's a function of the charcoal that will then strip that back out. Other parts of the country, gas is unodorized even in compressor stations.
Is that a result of just population density?
I don't know when the law happened in New Jersey, but when I started with the company, we were always odorized.
Thank you, gentlemen. Alex?
I'll be brief so that the public can have questions here. The first question I have is the compression stations that you have, other stations that Transco has, are they located a quarter of a mile from a preschool or any of the schools? They are. Could you tell us which ones they are?
In Princeton, New Jersey, there's a Terhune Orchards, if anybody's been there. We're directly across the street from there. And right next to Terhune Orchards is a daycare facility. In Old Bridge, we have a station right off of Bordentown Ave. A lot of residences, I don't know if anything is a daycare right there, but the population's pretty dense in the Old Bridge area where our station is near us.
And there's no concern when you have these leaks for the children? Because they
we don't have very many leaks.
Well, when you do your blowdowns, you're releasing it in the air.
When we do a blowdown that we know about, again, we do everything to minimize it, strip it, and we will make notifications. At the facility in Mercer County, if we have some planned work for some reason that's going to impact the public, we will have our land department make notifications. And again, whatever notification list needs to be developed for this proposed station, that's what we would do.
Carlos, you may be able to expand upon the blowdown studies that we do to ensure that there's no threat to public safety when the blowdown does occur.
Correct. During the engineering phase of the project, we do blowdown studies to basically determine what is going to be the impact depending on the location of where we put our blowdown stacks, and we determine the blowdown stacks to reduce any impact and always try to have them farther away from our fence line of the station.
Also, you talked, there's shut-off valves along the lines, correct? Are they going to be on any of these shut-off valves going to be on private property?
No, there are existing valve sites that are on our existing lines right now.
With the new lines, they're going to have to be, correct?
No, the new line's going to have the valve setting on the property we own, tying into the existing line that's there.
Okay, the two projects, and basically one will cancel out the other, correct? Your project has to go forward and be completed before the New Jersey Gas can put it their line?
Again, I'll pass this to David. I honestly know nothing about their project, so.
The regulatory paths are independent of one another. The two projects are synced up so that we're anticipating regulatory approval of both projects in Q1 of next year. And so that's the approach that we're taking.
So you'll be completed before the pipeline gets completed or started?
The way that the construction schedule, the last time that I saw it was that the phase one was intended to provide initial delivery capacity after the pipeline is completed, the pipeline being completed before the ultimate completion of the compressor station, because the compressor station has a longer construction duration.
So my other question is, we're going to have construction of both at the same time at some point?
Potentially for a brief period of time.
Okay, I'll just turn this over to the public.
We're going to turn it over to the public. I'm going to go off this list, but not in order. I want to give Chesterfield residents first crack to ask their questions. There's some other people that are here from other towns and other organizations, so I want to make sure our residents get to speak first. I ask for no redundancy if the question's already been asked. Please respect that. Questions, no comments, and one or two questions apiece, please, so we can get moving through this. Transco has offered to stay after to have one-on-one with people, so that's, I'd like to thank them for that. First will be Vince Garabin. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I listened to this presentation. I attended the Bordentown presentation, and I don't feel any better tonight either. After the Bordentown presentation, I went and did a little homework with some help with some friends of mine. And it's a bit of a history lesson for the people that are here tonight. You're hearing all these wonderful things that you want to put a daycare right next to the compressor. Hang on one second. I want to go over some of this track record you have. I need my glasses. It'll be brief, I promise. Because, well, the reason I want to make some of these comments, because it looks like people took umbrage with the word of deceit. In 2003, Williams paid, this is Williams, your company, they settled claims reporting false data to manipulate the natural gas market, but that's neither here nor there. 2008, natural gas explosion in Virginia ripped a 32-foot section of pipe from the ground and caused 1,100 feet burn zone. Property damage reported to exceed $3 million. 2009, fined $1 million for failure to monitor corrosion adequately with the Virginia pipeline. 2010, pipeline leak in Texas wasn't reported for 4 days. The quarter-inch diameter leak caused a $57,000 in property damage. Aerial patrol did not see the leak, found by an operator who saw some bubbles. In 2010-11, failed to implement or maintain stormwater measures to prevent potential pollutants during planned construction in Parachute, Colorado. State inspectors notified Williams of the violations and told him to take immediate action. According to the report, Williams didn't do anything for 7 months. Another fine, failure to conduct their own annual inspections of natural gas compressors in Texas and Louisiana. 2011, another explosion. I'm trying to go on quickly. 2012, gas leak caused explosion at compressor station in Pennsylvania. Williams starts the station within 24 hours and starts pumping frack gas despite requests from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection not to do so. DEP states that they make it very clear the above matter, but it was not an official order, so no fines were issued. 2012, they were fined again for failure to follow their own internal policies controlling corrosion in the natural gas pipeline in New York. And lastly, Williams began a cleanup of a benzene leak in Parachute, Colorado. Authorities and landowners notified that the soil has been contaminated. No mention that groundwater is poisoned. My point is, why would anybody in their right minds allow you people to come in here and put a compressor in an area with residents, schools? It's insane. And the next question I have for the committee is, has anyone contacted Congressman MacArthur? I have. I sent him an email. And hopefully you guys will get together with him, because this is a federal thing. And these guys are going to, you know what? The name of the game is money talks and BS walks. So be careful. Thank you.
And I'll comment a little bit. MacArthur's office has been in contact with us. I ask questions only, please. Dave Sheridan? Or Dawn, sorry.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Sorry.
What's been the response from the Congressman? One first.
December 10th, we can talk about that. There's a meeting December 10th, regular scheduled meeting.
Good evening. I just think, I want to thank the committee, but I think I speak for everybody here. I don't trust a single word you say. I spoke to the mayor in Roseland, and I have copies of the minutes. So just so you're aware, you state that you've never had a leak, but there was an evacuation of the school and the residents there. Is that not true in Roseland?
I explained who I was when I came in here. I'm the New Jersey South manager. Roseland's not my area. I'm not a North Jersey operation manager.
Okay, so just on the clear that you're here under the pretense of Transco.
Is anybody familiar with that?
Hi, I'm Mark Stevens. Can you hear me now? Okay. There was a school evacuation in Roseland. What happened is this. I was involved in that project. We constructed a compressor station, which is called 303, on Eagle Rock Avenue in Roseland. It's it's similar in the sense that PSE&G is very close. Existing Transco pipeline is close. There are not residents immediately in proximity to the station, at least within a few hundred feet. There was an incident during construction or during testing, and I don't have all the details, but what happened and what I understood is that there was a release that was planned, and there was a contact to certain municipal officials. The blowdown, apparently more gas was released than anticipated. As was indicated earlier, the methane, the natural gas, went up into the atmosphere. Mercaptan, which was obviously present in the blowdown gas, under the atmospheric conditions as of that day, lingered, and it apparently drifted. It was highly unusual, but the school in question was approximately a mile away. And again, highly unusual, but a janitor smelling the mercaptan this was not natural gas, we believe at this point, pulled a fire alarm. And so there was an evacuation, and Williams investigated the incident. In fact, I, along with a number of other Williams Transco representatives, appeared at some point thereafter before Roseland's council, and actually sat at a table similar to the way the committee is sitting in front of this audience. And yes, we sat and answered questions from a lot of angry residents. But that's essentially what happened. If more information is if you wish to have more information, I'd be happy to get our files out or get the people who have better information and bring that information to you.
Also on here, there was an incident in Edison, New Jersey, where the valve, the shutoff valve, froze. This was mentioned in their meeting. What are you going to do to prevent that? Because we all know here in New Jersey, it gets cold enough for things to freeze. What safety measures do you have for that? I think I speak for everybody in here.
As I mentioned, I thought I did in a presentation with some of the safety devices we have. Our valves are tested 2 times a year. Prior to winter, they're winterized, where low temperature grease is put in the valve. Any liquids in the valve are drained. The valves are operated according to FERC regulations and tested at that time as part of our maintenance and compliance procedures.
Just one comment on here, because one of your guys was at this meeting and he said that during the Branchburg, New Jersey incident, there were no injuries. One of your spokesmen came out and said there were injuries. So how do you expect us, as residents here in Chesterfield, North Hanover, New Egypt, wherever, Hopewell, Roseland, anywhere, to believe anything that comes out of your mouth, because you guys can't get your story straight? I was at the Bordentown meeting, and you were asked questions, and you still can't answer them. And my biggest concern is, I don't have a child in this elementary school, but if every time there's a smell of gas, or you're going to do your authorized, quote-unquote, blowdowns, do we have to worry about our children running out of the school quickly with no jackets and freezing cold temperatures and getting sick? Is that what we have to look forward to?
As I said before, the maintenance blowdowns that we would do would not be creating any smells, such as what happened in Roseland, where they had to release that. From what Mark just said, sounds like it didn't go through a deodorizer, it was during the construction phase. When this facility is built, the maintenance blowdowns will not be detectable by smell. They're controlled, slow blowdowns of a very small quantity of gas.
And one last question. You said that you're going to inform the, first responders, our firefighters, and our policemen, but are you going to train the school on evacuation procedures if that compressor station were to blow? Are you going to train because we have children around here?
If your township wants the OEM to work with us on that, we're not trainers of public facilities. Your OEM chief, if he's responsible for your evacuation of all the facilities in your township, we will work with him and do whatever's necessary, but that's normally who handles it for individual townships. We'll be at any meeting they want.
Okay, there's a Jim Kahn on here, and I do believe he is the Bordentown mayor. I will let you speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just a question for you. Why do you deliberately choose a location for a compressor station that will have a maximum impact on a large number of residential communities, schools, and potentially a turnpike? And I mean, you named a couple others you did in our state. Is it your practice to choose those locations?
There are a number of considerations that go into locating a compressor station. There are always considerations or constraints that come into play, and we seek to identify those constraints and minimize the impact of residents, environmental impacts, and any other significant concern that the community might have.
Clearly, this is not one of those locations.
There were a number of site alternatives reviewed as part of the site selection process, and this was vetted to be the most desirable site with minimal impacts.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That is just so so defies the facts. Never mind. Sorry. And I've got so many questions. I'm sorry. I'll try to rush them out here if I can. I guess just a point here. You keep saying that the toxins that are picked up in the gas are minimal, so forth and so on, such things as benzene, toluene, sulfuric oxide, formaldehyde, nitrous oxide. But isn't it a fact that benzene, toluene, formaldehyde, even in very small amounts, are dangerous to humans? Aren't they known carcinogens? And in very small amounts, are they not dangerous to human beings?
There is probably, I'm not an expert on this matter, but I would anticipate there's likely a concentration when exposed to does present a health hazard.
It's not a concentration, it's very small, minute amounts.
That's a concentration still. I mean, it's some parts per million.
And granted, I'll take it that fracking gas picks up its radon 222 naturally from going through rock and granite, I'm sure, and shale. But isn't it a fact that when it's vented, it does go into the ground? It does accumulate. It doesn't dissipate in the air.
Not sure I understand your question there.
If fracking gas, when you do a blowdown, is released, okay, and it has radon in it, that radon does not dissipate, it goes into the ground. Okay, I'll try to make it one there.
Everyone's so confused.
I couldn't.
There's, I mean, the determination from EPA review of contents of gas is that there's not significant sources of radon present in natural gas. And I mean, this is gas that's in New Jersey, in the community. We're not introducing a new gas supply to the state of New Jersey community. That this gas is what's out there and available. And so I think new concerns about the presence of gas that's already in the state and within the community are just unfounded.
It's the same gas you're burning at the stove and you're burning at your heaters and is in your houses every day.
Let me move on because obviously we're not going to get a straight answer here. There was a study done by Cornell University that, from wellhead to the end user, there is a leakage rate of somewhere between, I believe it's 3.6% and 7.9% of gas from the pipelines. So when you tell folks here that you have zero leakage, that's not quite correct, is it?
I would speculate that study pertains to, if you're talking about the full end delivery point, that the majority of that's within distribution systems. Our pipe is a welded pipe. There's no threaded.
Actually, the pipe does mention compressor stations as being one of the leakage points. I mean, just the fact that methane is corrosive and you've got gaskets and joints.
I said we work on a no-leak basis, meaning, if there is a leak, if something is minor, we correct it immediately. If there is a failure and something does leak, it has to be addressed immediately. We don't operate on losing 3 to 7% of gas in a compressor station and operate that way.
Yeah, but it's a marginal loss you can live with. Thank you very much.
Not when I'm working there and it's flammable and it could cause a explosion.
Gene Specker.
Sorry, what was the name?
Specker, Gene Specker.
Who am I speaking to? You three? Are you all from Transco, the whole second row as well? Okay. And I have a question that I'm sure everybody here would like to ask you, and it's a rather long question. Why would we want this project in our community? There is nothing that you can do or say that can tell us that this is anything positive, that will be any kind of good change to our community. We do not have chemicals being emitted on a daily basis. We do not have health problems associated with the exposure to the chemicals emitted. We do not have to be concerned right now about respiratory, neurological, dermal responses that the compression station will bring once built. So why would we want this in our community? I need you all to put yourselves in the shoes of all these people that are here tonight that do not want this here, that have no way to stop it. And all of you people are going to go home to your safe houses in your safe part of the country where you're not breathing any of this in. So why should we want it here?
As we've indicated, Transco has operated in this area for the last 65 years continually.
In Chesterfield?
This is not a
In
new-
Chesterfield.
It's
There's
not
a
new-
compression station in
No,
Chesterfield?
there is an existing Transco facility, pipelines, which are...
So you're a pipeline company?
Yes.
But I thought you were the compression company.
Compression is a component of pipeline.
So you're both. So that's what segmenting is, whoever wanted to know that. Segmenting is when they go under 3 different names to have the project seem like 3 different projects, so that first gets approved.
I'd like to finish answering your initial question.
I would like you to too.
So in addition to the continual operating presence we've had in this area for the previous 65 years, we've outlined the community benefits to this, and I believe provided information as to the concerns or the health concerns with exposure to the gas. FERC has reviewed the analysis or the potential impacts associated with gas exposure and determined there to be negligible impacts associated with said exposure. There are no health concerns or no legitimate health concerns with contents of gas.
Oh my God. Okay, and the other thing is why nobody trusts you, because not only do you lie to everyone in front of you, but you also lie to FERC, and that's the biggest problem, because they are basing their decision on honesty that you are not letting them know. I have different things here, and I'm not going to take up all the time because everybody in this room knows what it is that you've lied about. So how can FERC be on our side and protect us if what you're giving them is bad information? And you don't have to answer it because it's going to be more bullshit, so.
In regards to the last question, there's certainly a vast amount of information that we supply to FERC. We strive to provide complete and accurate information initially and only make one submission to FERC. Sometimes there are inaccuracies in the information that's submitted. If the public identifies those, I would encourage you to comment on the FERC docket to get those identified and in front of FERC. And as we become aware of inconsistencies with information that's become presented to FERC, we do our best to correct that record and supply updated information to FERC.
Andrea Katz. And we're going to, 1 or 2 questions, short questions. I understand you want to read the resolution. And
Hi, my name is Andrea Katz, and I have the privilege of sitting on the Board of Education here in Chesterfield. You mentioned that the Roseland School that had the issues that the woman who actually brought up. It's unusual to have an elementary school 1 mile away from a compressor station. Well, it must not be that unusual because we're about 1 mile away from the compressor station that you're proposing. We don't have buses on site here, so if we have to evacuate the children, we have to bring buses to the school. If there's been an explosion in a pipeline, I'm not sure how we're going to get them here. So we recently have passed, a resolution against both the compressor station and the pipeline, and would you like to hear it tonight? Is it okay if I read it to you, just so that we're all on the same page? The Chesterfield Board of Education, County of Burlington, State of New Jersey, opposing the Southern Reliability Link Pipeline Project and the Garden State Expansion Project, and calling for a moratorium on any and all planning, proposal, surveying, or construction of the Southern Reliability Link Pipeline Project and Garden State Expansion Project. Whereas New Jersey Natural Gas, I promise this isn't too long, is proposing to build an entirely new natural gas 30-inch diameter high-pressure transmission pipeline called the Southern Reliability Link to feed the southern portion of the utility service territory in Ocean, Monmouth, and a small portion of Burlington counties that will begin in Chesterfield Township through acres of farmland, near residential homes, and along school bus routes. And whereas the Transcontinental Pipeline Company, LLC, is proposing to construct a new meter and regulating station and a new 30,500 horsepower electric motor-driven compressor station called Compressor Station 203, an associated electrical substation as part of the Garden State Expansion Project on the Transco Trenton Woodbury Lateral in Act 14-15 Bordentown Chesterfield Road to connect the SRL with the Transco pipeline. And whereas the Chesterfield Board of Education is concerned about the hazard the project may create due to the nature and volume of the highly explosive gas flowing through the pipeline and compressor station and its proposed route, which crosses through our students' neighborhoods and along school bus routes and could potentially delay or cut off the school from the township's emergency services if an incident were to occur. And whereas the Board of Education is concerned about the potential noise and air pollution from Compressor Station 203 and the unknown long-term impact of the health of the school's students, staff, community members from exposure to the episodic release of low-level pollutants, including methane, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and volatile organic compounds, which are emitted during the air during frequent blowdowns, venting, or fugitive emissions. And one last paragraph. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Chesterfield School District, and the Board opposes the location Compressor Station 203 in the Garden State Expansion Project, and the proposed pipeline route of the Southern Reliability Link, or any alternate route of the compressor station location that would place Chesterfield School District or its busing routes in harm's way, and be it further resolved that an authenticated copy of this resolution has been forwarded to the FERC and BPU. So, thank you. I know that was long, but I just need you to understand that we're really concerned about the children in the school and what the impact that would have on them. And then can I also ask 2 little questions? Is that okay? Thank you. Recently, within the past day or 2, I've read that the Penn East project is being delayed. So as I understand it, this pipeline project is going to be taking that gas. So is that going to have any impact on this?
The Penn East is a completely separate project from the Garden State Expansion Project. There is not a defined pathway linking the Penn East project and the Garden State project.
So then it's just a coincidence that the Penn East pipeline is going to be producing 180,000 decatherms of gas, and that's what's projected to go through the Southern Reliability Link? That's just a coincidence?
I can't comment in regard to the Penn East project. I'd like to explain. It's not a project that Transco is running, and we're not operating it. As we've indicated, we are an open access pipeline. If a company or a foreign pipeline wishes to have an interconnect with our pipeline, we are bound to provide that access to them. And so our customer in this instance, New Jersey Natural, has sought out a pathway originating near our 205 coolant area down to the termination of the statement, or the proposed compressor station, and we are providing transportation services only along that pathway. How the customers themselves determine the supply source for the gas at the origin point of that transportation path. The Transco does not provide that gas, and we do not work with the customers to determine how they get that gas there. It is entirely up to our customers to determine a means of how gas gets to that point.
Okay, but you did say that in order to build, and correct me if I'm wrong, in order to build the compressor station, you have to have someone who wants to put gas through it. And so is this Penn East going to be cutting off that supply? Are you still going to have a client, a customer, if the gas is not coming through the Penn East pipeline?
Yes, independent of Penn East, there are a number of other supply sources available in which you could get gas to an originating point.
Okay, so you have other customers lined up that you're aware of?
It's not our customers. And so the shipper, in this case New Jersey Natural, can obtain source gas they're shipping along that path from wherever they want. That is not a Transco-directed activity, and we do not have input into that process.
Okay. And one last question, and then I promise I'll hand the microphone over. I'm getting the eye. When will you be correcting the FERC filing in regards to the water, to the wells, the residential wells? When are you going to be correcting that?
Prior to the close of the EA comment period, and so this week, I believe.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And along with that, there was other inconsistencies. Might as well put it out there now. You represented that the only Green Acres Park was Bordentown's. You're within less than 0.2 of a mile from our own park across the street.
had came through the table that we had provided within the our FERC filing had our tables that we took from the database that was available to us through New Jersey DEP that identified those Green Acres parcels that were within the area. So that is the information that we relied upon for that assessment.
Okay, and also it said the nearest house is 600 feet in the EA environmental assessment.
I don't think we spoke to home.
That's from the that's the nearest.
Oh, the NSA for the noise assessment.
From the property.
From
The 600 feet actually is for the nearest noise sensitive area. So the NSA 1, which is 600 feet away, that's from the compressor building to the property line of the nearest noise sensitive area. That's where the 600 feet comes into play.
So Reiner's house is 600 feet away.
Their property line is 600 feet from our compressor building, our proposed compressor building.
Right,
Not the property line, but that's the actual.
It isn't property
building.
line to property line. It's from the compressor station itself to.
Correct.
Linda Fries.
Okay, FERC is under the impression that all residences within half a mile were notified of the environmental assessment. I want to know how many residents were actually notified, including Bordentown residents, which are located right on the other side of the woods. That would include the Clifton Mills estate, the Clifton Mills development, which would include Waterford Drive residents, Winding Brook Road, and then the Williamsburg Village development, which would include Alfred Drive, Montpelier Lane, David Court, Vincent Court. Those are all going to be very close. Were any of those residents notified? Okay, are you going to correct that with the EA this week, before the 4th?
We provide the list of the half mile to the FERC. The FERC is the ones who actually mail out the notice of the EA. So that wasn't.
Yeah, but were all those residences listed on your list?
There are 139 residents on the list. So I don't know.
Can you please check and make sure? Because not only did you send out notices, which was supposed to be where the original compressor station was supposed to be located, which is now where the electrical substation is going to be located, but you actually moved it down. So when you moved it, did you notify all the affected residents then?
We scrubbed that list and we did a half mile radius around there.
It would be for the whole project, regardless.
The FERC application is reflected by the configuration.
The FERC application, what was initially submitted to FERC, is reflective of the current configuration of the facilities. Prior to the FERC application, there were different configurations considered, but the orientation and the location of the facilities has not changed since the initial application was filed with FERC.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of residents that weren't notified. And how about the Singleton House? Was that on the list for the National Historic Preservation?
Transco did, as part of the FERC process, had a cultural consultant that did a phase 1A on the entire property, all 40 acres, on site, doing shovel testing for any archaeological or cultural items of concern, as well as any listed architectural, such as the Singleton home. So that was discussed in our phase 1 report that was submitted to FERC and to New Jersey SHPO and was reviewed by New Jersey SHPO, and they concurred with the findings of the report that that the project would not have any impact on the view shed or anything associated with that cultural entity.
Yeah, because all this stuff is privileged information, so we don't have access to any of this stuff. So we're just, everybody's in the dark.
Well, the correspondences that come from New Jersey SHPO are not privileged. So those, their concurrence and their insight into the review of what was provided to them is on the docket and available for review. The report itself is not, but the findings are.
Okay, of the 13 components that are in natural gas, how many are heavier than air? And actually, come to, if the natural gas floats up higher than air, what about the additional components? Are they heavier than air? So that do they come down into the community?
He's looking at the list.
We'd have to break them down and get the specific gravity of each component, which I don't have right now. I could give you a list of what's. I can give you our printout of from a chromatograph showing you the components. I don't have the specific gravity of each component that's in there, but you're welcome to have that.
Okay, and what effect does natural gas have on the ozone layer? All right, as far as your charcoal filter, how come you're not required to use other means to collect any possible contaminants from the blowdowns? How come they're not taken into consideration as the rest of the compressors?
I don't believe from the information you presented, there are no other components which present a health hazard that should be filtered from the gas stream.
I do have lots of other questions.
And so does everybody else. I'm sorry. David Sass.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks to the Township Committee for letting us speak publicly on this matter. I do have more than a few questions. I'll try to be quick. I'm not asking because I like to hear myself speak, which I do, but I think they're important to ask. First questions are about blowdowns, and I think maybe I just ask a couple questions to make sure that the public knows what a blowdown is. First, about scheduled blowdowns. I wasn't clear, maybe it was in the slides, but how often do they occur?
In the slide, I said roughly 5 to 10 times in a course of a year for maintenance purposes on this type of unit. It could be a lot less, depending on the system we have on this unit, some of the different components on the unit.
Are they visual? Can you see them?
If you were inside our facility and at the point of the silencer, you may see some wavy lines as it mixes with oxygen and disperses.
But there's
not
no
visible from a distance.
There's no plume from a scheduled blowdown?
No, it's a controlled slow blowdown through a charcoal filter.
How about unscheduled blowdowns? How often do they occur?
I haven't had an unscheduled pipeline blowdown or station piping blowdown in 20 years.
Are there other type of blowdowns that you've experienced?
Say that again?
Are there other types? I think you mentioned two, but it sounds like there may be other kinds.
I've been concentrating on the unit because that's where the work would be done. The station piping and between the valves, we never have a reason to blow that down unless there was some reason to cut into the pipe to do something, which is, usually never.
But in an emergency circumstance, there could be a blowdown.
If we had to, for some catastrophic emergency, physically blow the entire station down, then yes, and that's one that I'm saying I have no recollection of ever having one. If we were to take the entire station out to do some kind of major maintenance, we would try to evacuate that gas in a different manner. And that's where we use recompression, where we pull gas out of one line, pump it into another line, and save that gas. We don't vent it to the atmosphere.
You mentioned noise and that there's a minimal noise impact from the compressor station. How do you measure that? Is that an average over days, months, weeks, year, or is that per event?
The federal regulation is a weighted 24-hour average. It's an average.
So it's fair to say that
when we measure it, our post-construction survey will hire a noise consultant, which will put monitors around the property line as the station is running for a certain amount of time, maybe it's a day, and then create a report, post-construction report, noise report based on that study.
So if it's average, it's fair to say that there's higher levels of noise and lower level of noise, and you sort of give the average of where they are?
There could be higher level noises, just, a piece of equipment turns on, a generator turns on, you can hear, you start your car, you hear it, and then it dies. That's typical.
Any idea what the decibel level from those are?
No, but I think they would all, my opinion is they would still all meet the noise level at the property line that we're required to be at.
A question about permitting. I've heard you say that you'll follow the federal permits. If local authorities or township authorities were to say that those permits aren't stringent, would you, I heard you say you'll cooperate with the police and the fire, would you cooperate with local authorities to follow those permitting requirements?
I understand the question to be if the local permits, or the state permits, I should say, are not as stringent as local, would we agree to follow the local?
Yes, if the township had a zoning ordinance or any type of ordinance that was more stringent than state or federal, would you follow those?
I would have to consult with the client. I suspect that the decision might be no. I'll be honest about that. For consistency's sake, we have several compressor stations throughout the state of New Jersey, as well as obviously other states. And there's a federal scheme for a reason. And as part of that federal scheme, there's the element of consistency, and the pipeline company knowing what standards they have to meet. And if the recourse of Chesterfield Township or any township is to seek with its with the constituents, the people here, speak to their elected officials and see at the state level whether such standards ought to become more strict. The state standards themselves, as I understand, are fairly strict, and they're designed, as well as the FERC standards, to address the needs of the people.
But just to be clear, you were saying no.
Well, it's not up to me. No. Let me be clear. It's not up to me. I would have to speak to the client, and the client would have to make a decision.
Can we ask the client?
It's very difficult to make blanket statements with hypothetical situations. Certainly we want to work within the areas that we're present to satisfy any specific local concerns, but just speaking in general terms, as Mark alluded to, we do try and have uniform consistency across all of our compressor stations and across multiple states. We work with those states and the federal government to ensure that those facilities are designed and operated in a safe manner. But also, in order to develop operations and safety standards, there has to be conformity within the facilities themselves. And so, depending upon what they are, it may be something that we can work with, or it may be something that's abnormal and would present more of an operational or safety hazard to the operation of the facilities.
Okay, it's probably another lawyer question, so if you don't mind staying up. Bordentown Township, I'm not sure if it was the same group, but last week Transco was in front asking for an easement, I think an access easement, and I heard the township committee and the mayor forcefully say no. Do you plan on using eminent domain to take that property?
Christine, this is a question that will be addressed by Christine Roy of the law firm.
The easements they need are permanent and temporary across that Bordentown Township owned parcel, and assuming we get a FERC certificate, our condemnation power is springing, so without the certificate we do not have condemnation power. So if that's issued, and we need that property, those property rights, we will condemn it, yes.
Two more quick areas. Actually, one is on safety. I'm still a little bit confused about the automated versus manned. I think, David, is that right? If I heard you say it right, that there'll be 10 permanent employees there from 7 to 3:30, and then the project will be automated after that?
No, the facilities are designed for remote operation on a continual basis. As Russ alluded to, there's a number of maintenance and inspection activities that occur within the area of the compressor station and the pipeline. And so we staff personnel out of that compressor station to both perform those operations at the compressor station outside of the pipeline. The operation of the facilities is not dictate manned or for continuous personnel or personnel to be present there while the facilities are operating.
So I made sure I wrote this down.
Not during construction. Construction obviously will be, during construction hours until it's in service.
So I made sure I wrote this down to say what you said correctly. You said the station is automated, not during construction, during operation, but, quote, for the convenience and necessity for public safety, there are people there. So do you need people there for the necessity of public safety or not? I'm still very confused.
I would need people there to complete all the compliance and safety testing that's required by the federal government according to our operation and maintenance manual throughout the year. So I equate that with safety. By us doing those tasks, by us being there, testing that equipment, repairing equipment, I tie that to the safety and safe operation of the facility. If we walked away from a brand new facility, it could probably run 2-3 years without ever anything being touched. But over time, electronics, cards, different things need to be fixed. But according to our FERC regulations, we're there doing compliance work that needs to be done.
Sorry, Chairman, one other quick question. I hear the music playing. You mentioned the benefits, 70 short-term employees over 14 months. You said half will come from the local hall. I think that's what you put. Where will the other half come? Are they union or non-union?
It would be union labor in this area.
So out of that, we can say maybe 1 or 2 Chesterfield residents, maybe. We'll get a job out of this. The other was 10 permanent employees and some increased tax base. I think you guys can see how there's a big burden on the community and no benefit. It's going to have an adverse impact on the economy, the health, and the safety. I know you can see it. I believe the Township Committee can see it. And if anybody's here from the county, I hope they can see it as well.